Welcome to the continuation of the construction document review. In this one, we're going to be looking at the foundation plan. This is generally the order in which I go. I start with the very first sheet that we have laid out on our general project browser, and which is the architectural foundation plan or the architectural foundation plan and the architectural 3D foundation plan. It's rarely the cover sheet, and I just go down in order. You can go through the order of cover sheet and then the site plan and all that type of stuff, but I just generally go through this order. And I'm assuming that someone who has done this construction document set has all of the height restrictions all taken care of, so I don't need to go do modify. I'm just there for a double check. And if those things are screwed up, then yikes, that is a little bit frustrating. But first sheet that I generally do, once again, is the architectural foundation plan. And the first thing that I look at is just the general editing aspects of it, the clarity and cleanliness and just the beauty of the layout of the sheet. When I look at this, does it look nice and is it legible? When I look at this, yeah, it looks nice. Our foundation plan, it actually fits in the square. It doesn't overlap it. The numbers make sense. There's an address, name, a date, and that will get updated. Notes seem to be in the right spots. When you're looking at this one in particular, you'll see that there's a lot of missing information. I'll get to that in just a second. But what I want to do is lay out your pyramid, problem-solving pyramid, code, construction, function, beauty. So if we're looking at all of this stuff, we want to do it in that order through our filter, which will be number one, code. What are the code requirements within any given foundation plan? It's a U for ground, making sure that the U for ground shows up in some logical place, right symbol, and there it is. It honestly could go anywhere. Number two, if there are any openings that need to go into another space, they have to meet the minimum requirements. And so if there is a block out for a crawl space, we've got a 3-foot wide. And in here, this is why concrete guys love these 3D plans. They see that it goes all the way to the top. And so that can be a visual thing. It could be a note thing, but both those things indicate that it is definitely large enough for a crawl space access. And this one, crawl space access, you can put anywhere in here because that's a pony wall. So it looks like this particular thing's meeting code when it comes to the crawl space access. Now, how about egress? We got to get out of the basement somehow. And so we have a window here and we have crawl space access there again. So in this window, I wonder how high it is. So I'm going to just do a quick double check in section and see if we got a basement plan. And we have a section key plan in this one because there's so many. And there is the section going through the window. Downstairs, no, it does not go all the way through the window. And so I'm going to just double check here. It says FFE basement 3 feet. So that will work as long as this is actually the FFE basement. And you can double check that in your section. FFE basement is right there, 3 feet. That begins to make sense, especially in the context of what we're looking at in the 3-dimensional foundation plan. So that means this window will meet egress and all of my code requirements have been met. Now, on to the next filter, construction, constructability. One of the things that you'll see missing in this particular foundation plan is all of the grid lines and dimensions. Well, when I got engineering back, rather than telling them to take off all of the spot elevations and all of the grid lines and all the dimensions, I just left them. I double checked them with mine and I just didn't have the heart to say, hey, delete all those because that's a ton of work. And I hid all of mine in this particular plan set because it was just easier. That way, this just feels more complete. This will be the primary plan that the contractor goes to, and it has all of the pony walls, the internal footings, and where everything actually goes. Some of the block outs are here. It's missing some of the block downs. And that is why I still have a foundation plan, is to call out the actual block downs. So what you'll notice, constructability, I have dimensioned out where all these block downs go. Looking at all of these, all dimensioned out. I know where they go. They are labeled properly. Block out, block down, block out, block down, and it's clear. So that's what we're looking for in terms of clarity of information and specificity for the contractor. Now, The next thing that we want to double check is make sure that we have looked at our foundation wall thicknesses. And they do have these the right thicknesses, generally speaking. And so we've double checked sections, section key plan. All right, what's going on? Okay, that's an elevation, not a section. Over here, we've got structural foundation wall. We've got super thick ephes layer. We've got internal wall apparently here also. That one makes sense. And so it appears that we have a fairly standard hung joist foundation wall condition, but we have a 10-inch wall on this side, which right there actually doesn't make any sense because there is no brick ledge. So we want to go investigate why that doesn't make any sense. And so if we keep going down the line, also no brick ledge and it's still 10 inches. So why? And let's try another one. How about this one? Here it is. All right, so we have an interior aligned stud wall with the foundation, and we have a brick ledge on the outside. And I suppose for ease of construction, rather than going from 810, 810, 810, 810 all the way around this whole thing and confuse all the guys, the idea is just stick with where the brick is, just stick with the standard 10-inch foundation wall. And that way everyone knows where to put the brick ledge. And you could either call it a 10-inch foundation wall. In all reality, we're relying on the builder to go through with the contractor and tell them where they want the brick ledge and how deep they want the brick ledge. It doesn't matter how detailed we make this. If they don't want to follow it, they're not going to follow it. But that is one place where things can go wrong all the time in construction, is the alignment of the J-bolts on the inside relative to when there is not a brick ledge. That is something that the builder is responsible for. And we can put a note in here that says builder's responsible for J-bolt location based on stud wall alignment. We have installed brick ledge per contractor. We could put this other note, contractor responsible for J-bolt or anchor bolt. Let's call it the right thing. Anchor bolt location based on stud wall alignment. Contractor. Is it a contractor or contractor? And these foundation wall notes, I'm going to put them up here because it just doesn't make any more sense. Could align that. So that's a little cleaner alignment. And voila, and let's get this so it actually looks cleaner. So since all of these are centered, let's just make them centered. Whatever. There's so many notes here, it probably should be left centered, but it's still clear. In the end, clarity. That's what we're looking for. So now we've taken care of all of our construction things. Where things go wrong in construction when you're doing foundation plans. Number one, make sure your footings actually rest on undisturbed soil. And so you have to get those footings down below grade. So when you're on slope sites, make sure those footings go 2 feet, 3 feet below grade, unless you're in a location that doesn't have frost depth requirements. Number two, when you're looking at the final footing locations and the size of these things, sometimes there might be some giant moment frame and this is an 8-foot wide footing or something like that. There's tons of torsion on that. You want to make sure that somewhere, somehow, the excavator gets that information. And so they actually see that, oh, by the way, this is an enormous footing. And so I might want to over excavate this a little bit more. Okay, so the question is, like an excavator, how does the excavator know how much over dig he needs to do in order to fit the footing going in here? And if he's looking at our plan versus the engineering plan, he's going to run into some serious issues. So that's why we have to have a note that says refer to the structural engineering plans for the size of the footings, for the sizes, the width, the depth, all that type of stuff, whatever the text needs to be in order to convey the information to the right individual. There are 2 different foundation plans that we just need to make sure that all of the information exists between the 2 different foundation plans, and we direct the contractor to the correct one. Because I've run into multiple situations where someone didn't excavate far enough and then they had to come in and redo excavation, and no contractor is happy when that happens. And most builders don't read through the plan set comprehensively enough to understand that they should have paid attention to all of the sheets. And what'll happen is contractors will just separate sheets out and give them to different subcontractors. And so they may not even have given them both sheets. And so when you're looking at this, that's why I eliminated all of the dimensions, because an excavator, a concrete sub can't do anything with my plan set. However, there's critical information on the plan set that the builder needs to make sure goes into it, and I'm putting the responsibility on him to make sure that it happens. So that's the constructability of what we're dealing with when it comes to the foundation plan. So we've gone through code, we've gone through construction. Now in terms of function, honestly, nothing really has anything to do with anything other than block downs. And those block downs, we're not calling out, we never will call out how far they need to go down. That is going to be up to the builder. Sometimes they block them down 2 feet, and then they'll just fill it all in with concrete because they like a real solid edge that will never crack. And that is entirely up to the contractor in terms of how they actually do that. Functionality, there isn't a lot. Beauty, there isn't a lot in terms of just brick ledges and the details. So that is what I'm looking for when I am reviewing a foundation plan. So that is what I'm looking for when I'm reviewing a foundation plan. The accuracy of this stuff and the accuracy of all the information. So if we were to go through this, here's what I'm looking for when it comes to constructability of this. Grid lines, the grid lines actually labeled some logical thing. This one comes 1, A, 2, 3, da, 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 da. And when I go through the grid lines, JJ, H, H, F, F, D, da, da, da. Okay, those seem to make sense too. Who cares where AA is or whatever? And we got 0, 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, D. There are too many grid lines on this one, but I know if they're labeled and they're some reasonable labeling, then they will be labeled correctly for the rest of the project, and I can just rely on that for the rest of the project. So that is my verification, my check. One of the things that I want to make sure that I'm looking at, if I'm going through top of wall, top of footing, 10 inches, 10 inches. That way I know that is an 11-foot wall, right? So 91 minus 80, 11 feet. And that's the super quick check, is I'm just looking at the inches. If this was labeled with spot elevations, then I would be verifying these numbers against those numbers to make sure that the heights were right. And once I knew most of the heights were right, then I knew that everything was cut in the right spot and it was going to work. And then I'd go through and just make sure all the dimensions work. And the way I go through that is start from the outside. Do I have an overall? Got an overall of 88, 86.2, which doesn't make sense. And I don't know where they're getting their additional 2 inches from, 6, 5, 6. But it's a 2-inch increment, so it'll work. Oh, it's 1'8", so that's what it is. Rather than 1'6", it's 1'8" right there, which will still work. I'd prefer it at 1'6", but 1'8's fine. So we're just going to go with that. This is 19.8, so we're just going to go with that. And this ends up being funky dimensions as you go around these corners anyway, and so be it. So one of the crazy things is they will have dimensioned this right here, 2.6. That is indicated all the way over there, so their dimensioning sucks, but you can find it. What we're trying to prevent is phone calls, unnecessary phone calls where someone say, hey, can you give me this dimension? This dimension's missing. Accuracy and clarity, that's what we're aiming for. And so that's the one disadvantage of having the engineering firm do this, is I just don't trust their accuracy and clarity. For instance, I don't know the width dimension, the long dimension on where that is located. And so that will probably be a phone call. And where the center of that pier is, actually we've got 4.1.5. And so we have in one direction, you can actually find these probably when you're looking through like the framing plan. So someone will be able to find this somewhere. They can even utilize the graphic scale, even though you're not supposed to do that. But let me just put it this way. The engineering firm did a good job. It's a solid, but it's not an A because there is missing information. And I'm not going to go through mine and do it. I'm going to just get the phone call. Hopefully they can figure it out. This is not my set. It is 95% good. And I do not want to spend another week going back and forth with the engineer to double check and make sure all these are accurate. And we can get lost in that type of stuff till everything's perfect, but it wastes so much time. And when we're trying to get just stuff out the door, if you've got time to waste and be able to get it fully accurate, go right ahead. But if something just needs to get out and we've got a deadline, get it out. Is enough information there to do it? Yes. Are you going to get a phone call? Likely, but at least that mistake wasn't on our drawing. Okay. So in the end, code, construction, function, beauty. That's what we're looking for with every single set. Clarity and clarity of overall document presentation, clarity of text, clarity of notes, and clarity of line work, which this one actually looks good. So we will attack another drawing set next and hope this was helpful.